Splash! You've just entered the Deep End. Welcome to the Deep End, a part 2 of your part 1 that was Brandon's Discuss Anime. This time, we are discussing ThunderCats 2011.
Still sad that there's not a season 2.
Yeah.
Still sad. How do you feel about that, by the way? Are you as mad as people would be, as somebody else would be, like me, about the fact that there's no season 2 to this?
Hearing you say this was originally going to be 2 seasons, yes, I am even more mad now.
It makes me so sad.
Because I think the original lasted 4, potentially 5 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And if it would have had plans for no discernible ending, like, let's make this 4 seasons like the original, I'd be like, oh, okay, I could see it ending now, since the story is half told with a ending they had planned. I'm just upset.
And I remember hearing rumors floating around for like years, like 3 or 4 years, I want to say, about, oh man, it might be coming. I hear it might be coming back. Oh, there's talks like, Adult Swim might pick it up and shit like that. I kept hearing, especially when Toonami came back, I heard rumblings again of ThunderCats getting picked up for a second season. And I'm like, I would be so happy.
Yeah.
And then I hear like about when the podcast with the interview came out, I heard him talking like there was a point where he's like, I'd rather let the fans see all or hear all of what we had planned, because now at this point it seems like there's no way it's coming back. There's no way to gather the people that were working on it at the time back together again. They're all spread out everywhere else now. There's no way, which is sad. And then on top of that, we get shit like ThunderCats Roar, which is just a fucking god awful piece of garbage.
I don't even want to watch clips of that because
Nobody does.
I'm just going to be disappointed.
Oh, most definitely. You will be very sad. So yeah, the plan for season 2.
And let's just say that I watched episode 26 about 1 a.m. as of this recording day, so I had no real time to listen to the 3-hour podcast, but I will eventually listen to it to hear anything that we breeze over, since although we're going to have our thoughts on it, we're going to be discussing, or mostly you will be discussing, what you heard in the podcast.
Yeah. This will give you your fresh takes on hearing it, because I heard it. I think I finished the podcast as of like Wednesday, I want to say, of this week. So I've had some time to stew on it. So I can tell you this much. The first few episodes of season 2 were going to be like catch up after like the first few years of a time skip that we got. Essentially, they were going to do things with like, oh man, we're gonna re catch up to Lion-O, and like it's been years, and they've been trying to find with the other animals, trying to find like a new Thundera, a new place to like make their own home, and they've been being hounded this entire time by like Mum-Ra's forces, right? Meanwhile, Mum-Ra's been like slowly gathering power and restarting his ship now that he has like the tech stone. So we meet up with Lion-O. I was talking about it before in the main podcast, but he's gotten like buff. He's become more like his 80s counterpart with a fuller mane and stuff. Tigra's come up, and they're still having the same spat of like who would have been the better king on and off, but the people are kind of like losing hope in Lion-O because it's been so long and they're getting run so ragged by Mum-Ra's army at this point.
And sorry to interrupt, but one thing I noticed as we were recording the main podcast, the ancient spirits of evil
Mm-hmm.
Where was it? Crap, I clicked away from it, but they are a lizard, a jackal, a baboon, and a vulture.
A good chunk of those are straight up just ripped off Egyptian gods.
No, I'm saying his four main generals are the same species as the ancient spirits of evil.
Good point. Good point.
So, was there any plans on resurrecting the ancient spirits of evil into new bodies, and that's why he chose those four people?
There might have been, but it was never mentioned. That would be a great theory though, to like resurrect them in the bodies of those. But in doing that, wouldn't that also make them mortal and thus killable? Like it would also kind of give them a weakness in the same way.
Right.
It's an interesting idea though that could have been used in one way or another.
Maybe they can't do anything in spirit form.
Well, that's not true right off the bat because of the tiger episode.
Right. Because
Plus, unless if you also want to look at Mumra himself, he's invoking the ancient spirits whenever he transforms into his ever living version.
although we didn't get all powerful, which I remember reading about, which is kind of like an upgrade to Ever Living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, getting back to where we were before, the animals that are starting to lose hope are in fact starting to defect to Mumra because he's offering them safety and shit. You know, where they won't be hounded by the army or anything like that if they just serve him.
Oh.
You know, and Lionel starts losing hope, and there's all this going back and forth. There's probably more detail in the actual podcast, but that's what's going on there. Lionel's essentially fighting back the idea of like, can I actually lead them the way I need to? We catch up with Chitara, and I believe I mentioned this to you, but there's like this fat cat who apparently she used to know during her days of trading with Jaga. He was one that Jaga could never actually train because he would not take to discipline, but he was very fast, just naturally speedy, but he would not take Jaga's discipline. So Chitara keeps getting beaten by him, and he keeps like insulting her and beating her down verbally and stuff. And Lion-O talks to her, and they talk back and forth, and he goes, you know, why, you know what? You know, I went into the book before, you know, and Jaga taught me some stuff back in the beginning. Why can't you do the same? So that's what Chitara decides to do. She decides that she's going to try and get into the Book of Omens and talk to Jaga and see what Jaga can do for her. What ends up happening is that some revelations occur in that we find out Chitara runs quickly, like her initial speed when we first saw her in that flashback when she was going to the clerics. She runs fast because she's running away from her problems. And the biggest problem she had, at least in her mind, was that her parents died because of her. Because she was sent to get the medicine that would have supposedly brought them, you know, not healed them, but would have helped them to recover. But she wasn't fast enough, and they died before she got there.
Oh no.
So she keeps blaming herself, and Jaga eventually reveals to her, look, the disease they had was not going to be something that could have been cured. You being slow didn't change anything. They were going to pass one way or the other. The idea behind that at that point was that, like, that guilt had been weighing her down the entire time she's been running. So because of how fast she already is, her mental barriers that she had put up to keep her from running faster was her guilt. Realizing and understanding that there's no reason for her to feel guilty, she couldn't have done anything anyway, it was inevitable, breaks those shackles, and now she's way faster than she ever has been before. Like, those mental barriers are down. She can run stupid fast to the point where she outruns that fat cat, and that fat cat becomes her apprentice. And on top of that, there was a little hint dropped here where it's like, she can't do this long because it takes a lot out of her to do it. But the idea was that she could run so fast, she could catch glimpses of the future.
What?
That was the plan. She'd be able to catch glimpses of the future by running as fast as she could. It wouldn't be for long, and it wouldn't last or anything, because it would take a lot out of her. So if you want to think about it this way, I'm going to assume it would have meant like she'd be down for a couple of days. She wouldn't be able to like get anywhere near her top speed for a while, at the very least.
She would run so fast she could see the future.
Glimpses. I don't know how in depth that power was going to be.
That is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. We were going to get a pickup of where Wily Kit and Wily Cat were. So these two over the years have gotten separated, let's say, right? Kit has taken more to like meditating and being more spiritual with the elephants, whereas Cat has kind of become like more of a master thief now, like using Tooket's bag and meeting up with Tooket again. Okay. So essentially, Wily Cat has become this like, you know, king of thieves kind of idea of like, hey, I'm like the king of the underworld at this point. Whereas Wily Kit has become more of the spiritual one, like using the flute and all that stuff, or the floop is what they called it. I didn't even know that, but yeah, the floop, because it's a flute that's a loop.
I could kind of see her doing that because of her connection with the elephants.
Mm-hmm. There was also planned to be a flashback episode to show where they got those items too. I guess it involved like a baron and a tower and stuff, and filching those items from the tower. But we get some of that stuff. They're, you know, like probably 13, 14 at that point, I would guess. I don't remember if they really mentioned much about Panthro and where he was going to go, really.
Wait. Can I take a guess?
He'll
be grumpy.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's his personality. Like I said, I don't remember if he really picked up on where Panthro was going offhand. Same with Tigra. I think Tigra was just still kind of like more of the same, a bit more serious. They did say Tigra was going to be more of like the battle master or the quartermaster, I guess. You know, the guy that could pick up just about any weapon and know how to use it, which they kind of alluded to when he first picked up that pistol in the beginning. It's like you give him a weapon, he can figure out pretty quick how to use it and use it effectively.
And I don't remember much of the 80s cartoon, but did Tiger fly the airplane? What do they call it? Crap.
The feliner?
Yes. Was he their pilot?
I don't remember. I'll be honest. Like I remember they did have like a plane of some sort, but I don't remember who flew it. I know Panthro was always the thunder tank, so it could very well have been Tigra flying the plane because Chitara's just fast in general. Mm-hmm. And I know that the Wily Kit and Cat always had the hoverboards.
Looking at the ThunderCats comic, midway through watching this series, they did have a older teenage Kit and Cat.
I saw that when I was looking up like reference images and stuff. When I was like typing in things and like, I wonder what an older Wily Kit looks like. And it's like, oh shit. There's a point where Mumra literally almost kills, if not captures, all the cats and keeps Wily Kit as a goddamn pet slave, basically. I'm like, oh, well, okay, what the shit? The comics apparently get dark. Like, there's literally a scene of like Wily Kit in basically slave Leia outfit scrubbing Mumra's back.
You shall be my sex slave.
I mean, with the way he has her dressed, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised. I also remember like reading that panel, like Mumra's speech bubbles referencing the fact that he had killed Wily Cat in front of her. But yeah, anyway, back to the actual show. There were those catch-up episodes. There were some episodes about at some point them getting the next stone or something along those lines. I'm trying to remember all like the bigger plot. Oh, right. So there was a point where Panthro is making plans and it's like, look, kid, he's talking to Lion-O. He's like, look, kid, I don't know if I'm going to make it back from this, but there is a way we can restore some hope into these people. There is a way that we might be able to fight Mum-Ra. And it goes back to like a flashback of back when he and Groon got into Mum-Ra's spaceship or pyramid, and Groon knocked him off the side of the platform that Mum-Ra was on and all that shit, right? It kind of picks up after that. Apparently Panthro in that fall had broken his leg and had to like work his way through the pyramid without being discovered at the same time. And we find out that he stole the Thunder Tank from Mum-Ra's lair.
Wait, why would Mum-Ra have a cat-themed tank?
Well, remember the flashbacks? He had cat-themed fucking airplanes too and spaceships.
Is it because he employed cats?
I have to assume that was the case. Because I mean, when they first have that flashback when Leo is taking the Eye of Thundera from Tigris, the ship that Tigris flew back into the hangar was a cat-themed spaceship.
Oh.
So yeah, he has cat-themed shit, and you know, maybe Mum-Ra didn't care how they styled it as long as they worked. Who knows?
Why was the fourth stone called the Soul Stone when there's a Spirit Stone?
That's a solid question. I can't answer that because I don't think it was really explained too much what that stone specifically did. At least that I can remember. Anyway, there could have been something said that I'm not remembering offhand. Anyway, Panthro's telling Lino about the fact that, like, look, he stole the Thunder Tank from Mum-Ra's lair, and that's how he managed to escape, was basically busting out with that thing. He's like, it wasn't the only one there. There was basically an armada of them in there. And he's like, I can go and get them, and I'll attach, like, remote devices so that way they'll drive themselves back here. But who knows whether or not I'll make it out alive.
A Thunder Tank Battalion.
Yeah, you go, battalion. That's a better one. Armada's for like
Spaceships.
No, oceans, navy.
Okay.
I think. I could very well be wrong, and people will scream at me and tell me that I am wrong.
Yay.
But yes, that's the plan. But Robert Bill comes in and he's all like, Panthro, friend, we want to help. And it's like, no, you guys aren't warriors. This is a warrior's job. And, you know, they're stubborn. So they tag along. He's like, all right, fine. You guys can stick along for now. So eventually they come in, they get the tanks. They do sneak in. They get their tanks. They start reeling them out. And Mum-Ra realizes what's going on and starts blasting tanks to the point where, like, Panther is ready to sacrifice himself to let the other Robears and the rest of the tanks get out. And then Robert Bill comes over like the comms and is like, no, Panthro, I'll do it, essentially. And sends out the autopilot on Panthro's tank to force him to go home. Meanwhile, Robert Bill turns around and essentially sacrifices himself with the tank he's using to let them all get away. And apparently during that battle, there were also some other burbles that didn't make it that got killed. Some nameless ones.
Oh no.
So Robert Bill's gone. He's a dead bear. But they do get the tanks.
He can be rebuilt if his memory chip is there, right?
You would think, but who knows whether or not there was anything left. I don't think Mum-Ra would have left anything.
Oh, good point.
But yeah, they get the tanks that had to sacrifice Robert Bill and a few of other burbles. And I think the last line that was mentioned that, like, when the tank rolls in and it's Panthro's tank and the hood comes up, Lionel's like, Panthro, what happened? And it's like, we lost a warrior today. You know, referencing Robert Bill.
Oh.
You know, that pumps up the rest of the people there to, like, stick around to help fight. I'm trying to think what else was going on. Shit. I can't think of anything else offhand until, like, later on. Later on, around the time when the Soul Stone is getting uncovered, Groon comes back out.
From the astral plane?
From the astral plane. They didn't really explain how he comes back, but he manages to become In the astral plane, he like is warped and becomes this like demonic monster that is able to tear through dimensions at this point after doing whatever he's been doing, wandering in the astral plane. And you know how Panthro was saying like it feels like I can still feel my arms, like they're still attached and doing things, right?
Yeah?
Grun has attached Panthro's arms to himself, which have also become like warped and demonic looking.
So, wait. Does he have Pantheo's arms as his arms? Or is he now.
A second set of arms.
So he's like Goro from Mortal Kombat.
If you want to think of it that way, sure. I'm not quite sure where they're attached exactly. They could be like attached to his shoulder blades and just reaching over the top of him, or they could be just, mounted on the shoulders themselves. I don't know.
Okay.
He comes out and Panthro starts fighting him as you would expect. And Panthro loses his robotic arms and is now having to fight with just his feet. And he's doing pretty good from the way it was described until it's like, look, those are my arms. I know those are my arms and I can still use them. So Panther still has that connection to his arms, I guess, via spirit or something. And his arms start like reducing and becoming what they used to be, like his original arms. And they start beating the shit out of Grun, even though they're still attached.
That would be half funny to say.
Eventually to the point where like they reattach to Panthro and he ends up finishing off Grun. What the other cats are doing at this point, I'm not 100% sure. This was supposed to be like later on, so things are vaguer. But this was definitely one of the ideas they had. And then I guess we can get to like the point in the... Oh, right. So here's the other thing. Here's where we get into that point where we jump into a time skip. Now, I'm not 100% sure where the Grun thing fits in, whether it was pre this second time skip or post second time skip. I don't know. But the plan was basically like, look, Lion-O basically tells Tiger, look, I need to train. I feel like I'm not doing what I can here. I need to train somewhere. And his plan is to go into the Book of Omens and train in there and try to like come to like a decision of how he's going to do things. And he's like, look, it'll only be a short time. You've always said you wanted to be king. Here's your chance. While I'm gone, you're in charge. So that would have been the end of the first half of the second season. We get a time skip and we find Lion-O it's been like 10 years, I think it was supposed to be.
Wow.
Lion-O has lost track of time completely while he's been inside the book.
That is not a short time.
No, he has lost track of time completely in the book. And it's probably because time flows differently in there and he's just not used to the way that thing works. The other cats are the ones that pull him out. He doesn't come out himself. He doesn't like get himself out of the book. To him, it's felt like not that long of a time, but it's been 10 years.
Will he be younger than everybody now?
I'm not 100% sure what he was supposed to look like at this point. I assume that like he might have aged or something like that, but I'm not sure. I do remember him saying that he's going to be even bulkier than he was prior. So he's bulked up even more.
Wow.
But it's been like 10 years. So like Kit and Kat are 24 now.
Huh.
And I know they were mentioning like Lion-O's had problems because every time he's thought he's found someone, that person's betrayed him, whether it was Chitara, wittingly or unwittingly in her case, or Pumaira, who's just kind of like backstabbed him real hard. The idea was like, look, he was going to see Wily Kit now, and she's 24 at this point. And the idea was like, look, she's been with him from the start. She believed in him when nobody else did. And they were going to become a thing, which I have mixed feelings on because it's like you've known her since she was literally a kid. But I still like the idea of this whole thing being tied together. It's weird. I have mixed feelings on it. I like it and I don't like it. I mean, it's not like Lion-O did anything to make her that way. It just kind of developed on its own. Oh, that's right. They were going to do Eldara. That's right. Eldara was meant to be like some other point of like another dimension that worked alongside, like not worked, but like lived, I guess, alongside of the astral plane, I guess. And there was going to be plans of them going there at some point, and maybe that's where the final stone was. I'm not sure though.
Interesting.
But yes, that's where, and they were going to figure out where that book that Wily Kitten Cat's father had, and how that came into play, and where that came from, and the cat or whoever that first discovered it had written it down, how he got there, and all that fun stuff. Meanwhile, yeah, that was going to happen. Meanwhile, we'll jump back. Kitten, Lionel become a thing. What else was there?
I think I read that Pumaira was going to come back as like
Yes.
some insect monster.
Yes, that's right. Okay, that I think was pre-time skip, I want to say. So Mumra's been experimenting on the animals. Also, we find out at some point or another that Third Earth is our Earth.
Nani?
So if you remember some of the shots of Third Earth from like the space section, it looks like there's a planet similar to Jupiter around that it's near, right? The idea here was that Mumra has been to Earth 3 separate times, including the time where he's crashed here. He was around during the time of the dinosaurs, and he was around during the time of the ancient Egyptians, which is where he started palling around with humans and took up that whole motif.
Okay.
And probably learned about the ancient gods, or the ancient spirits of evil. Or, you know, maybe he's the one that introduced those things to the ancient spirits to the Egyptians.
So because of that, are we technically second Earth?
Technically, we would be considered second Earth, but it's also being labeled by the times Mumra has visited the planet, technically.
Okay.
So, you know. So the idea was that, like, the sun, it didn't go supernova, but it did that whole thing where, like, it expands and becomes, like, a red giant. And the idea was that, like, somehow it pushed Earth out, and Earth ends up becoming, like, a moon around Jupiter. That's how it's still around and technically not destroyed or anything. It's now become a moon around Jupiter.
So what's with all the anthropomorphic animals?
I'm getting there. So the anthropomorphic animals are because Mum-Ra liked humanity, but he didn't like how chaotic they were. So he mixed them with animals to make them more moldable to what he wanted. He was taking DNA from other animals and humans and mixing them together.
Oh.
And, you know, creating these different beings. That's where all the animals come from. There was also meant to be humans eventually in, like, season 2. It was going to reveal that humans were still around.
Huh.
Not many, but they were still around. They existed.
Huh.
So, yeah. That's where that stuff comes from. We get into the final battle with Oh no, we were talking about Pumaira, right? So Pumaira was getting experimented on, not experimented on, but seeing the experiments that Mumra was performing, where he like basically supercharged one of the animals with like this, with something or other. I forget if it was an injection or what it was supposed to be, but it basically turned it into like some super destructive insectoid monster. And Pumaira was all like, "Look, I need that power. With that, I can totally destroy the ThunderCats." I remember now. This is what triggers the time skip for Lionel to go into the book. Pumaira comes in and fights them all. She's got like the whole insectoid shit going on. And Lionel is like, "Look, I'm not going to fight you. I will not fight you." He keeps refusing to fight her, and she's going to kill him. And Tiger is trying to yell at him, "Look, she's gonna kill you," and he's got her basically at gunpoint, and Lionel's like, "No, stand down. She won't kill me. I'm not going to fight her." And, you know, Pumaira's ready to like attack and kill him at this point, and that's when Tiger pulls the shot on her and kills her right between the eye, like the shot right between the eyes, and kills her.
Ooh.
And that catastrophically and emotionally wrecks Lionel, because he's like, "Look, she wouldn't have done it. She would not have killed me." And Tigra is just all against, like, "No, she would have. Are you kidding me? Did you not see that?" And it's that rift that makes Lion-O like walk off and be like, look, I need to be alone. I'm going into the book. I need to train or whatever to get over this. You thought you were going to be a great king this whole time. You do it now while I'm gone. Prove to me that you're better. Prove to yourself.
I'll be in the time compression chamber. I want to train.
Yeah, right. Okay. I'll be in the time chamber. I should also point out, I did forget to mention this, when he comes out of the book, he's met with Chitara and a little white tiger boy, Bengali. Chitara and Tigra had a kid while he was in the book.
Was Bengali in the original series?
Bengali was. However, there was no relation between him and anyone else, as far as I'm aware. But, that was the plan. They were going to have a kid. And when Lion-O gets out of the book, Tigra has not been able to hold things together.
I'm looking up now. Yep, Bengali was one of the expansion ThunderCats, along with Humaira and Lynx-O.
Lynx-O was mentioned in season 1. He was the one that became the main captain instead of Panthro and Grun, and those two were sent out to find the Book of Omens. Lynx-O was actually meant to come back in season 2. They were meant to do a rescue for him. That's right. And we get an entire backstory for Slive and why he hates everyone. It's because back when Claudius was still in charge, he wanted to expand Thundera, and to do so, it meant destroying all of the breeding lands essentially of the lizards. So when Slive comes back from doing some hunting or whatever, he's literally seeing the slaughter of his people by the ThunderCats. And Lynx-O was the one in the lead of that stuff. And, he says one of the lines of look, it's nothing personal. Lynx-O's the professional soldier. This is just orders. I'm not doing this, to be an ass. I was just ordered to do it by my king. It's nothing personal. Just business. Whereas when Slive comes back and kills Lynx-O, I believe, if I remember correctly, the line he delivers was along the lines of this isn't just business. It's very personal. So yeah, Lynx-O was meant to show up again, but be killed in the act of Tigra and Panthro trying to bring him back to join up with the main ThunderCats of the time. So there was going to be a point where Lion-O and Slive end up fighting together after the second time skip, where Slive basically realizes, look, I haven't been a leader to my people, and ends up betraying Mum-Ra and giving Lion-O at least one, if not both, of the stones that Mum-Ra has in his possession, and ends up being killed by Mum-Ra after just getting the stones to Lion-O.
Oh.
Needless to say, there's a fight that goes on. Tigra ends up getting murdered by Mum-Ra, and Lion-O is frothing with rage at this point at the fact that his brother's been killed in front of him. And we have the whole, super Phyto shit going on. And then from there, Mum-Ra does get defeated. When Lion-O lands the final hit, he kind of dissipates into dust, and the cloth wrapping of Mum-Ra just floats off into the wind. And from there, we get an ending of one of two. They hadn't decided, I guess, at that point, which way they were going to go with it, whether it was going to be the sadder route or the worse route, in my opinion, which was, with all of the stones, Lion-O was able to resurrect Tigra, which I don't like personally, unless he wasn't exactly dead, but was mortally injured, right?
Okay.
Maybe enough time hadn't passed that he had actually died and you were able to heal him back to life. Sure, I could buy that. If he was supposed to be dead, that means the sacrifice was null and void. It kind of takes the impact out of the sacrifice he made of taking a hit for Lion-O to stop Lion-O from dying. And there were supposed to be final words between them of look, you were the right king. I could not do what you did and shit. It would take that entire impact of Tigra's final words to Lion-O and just throw him in the trash.
What was the better ending?
The better ending was he dies, Tigra stays dead, and we flash forward a bit to after Lion-O has rebuilt Thundera, the city exists. He was going to take Bengali and take him down to I guess there was supposed to be kind of a Game of Thrones-esque place where there were statues of all the previous kings, and be look, many great kings lay here, but there is one who stands above the others. And he was going to show Bengali a statue of his father, say, this is the man that managed to keep everything together while I was gone. The one who held us all together for 10 long years. Your father was the greatest king. And then there was going to be, like, I guess a post-credits sequence, potentially, of, like, Mum-Ra's cloth wrapping flying around in the desert, and it was going to attach to some guy and drag him beneath the sands.
Yeah, with the whole cloak floating away, I'm like, yeah, Mumra's not dead.
Yeah, it makes me wonder then, is Mum-Ra a full-blown spirit or not? Oh, there's another bit I did forget to mention. There's a point where Mum-Ra turns on the ancient spirits and tries to destroy them. And I believe he even succeeds, or at least that was the plan.
What?
I think the plan was for Mum-Ra to destroy the spirits and absorb their power.
And then he would become the all-powerful form.
Probably. He would have gotten the all-powerful form. That would have probably given him the all-powerful form.
Okay.
I don't remember that being mentioned by name, but that probably would have been what happened. Which is why, even without the stones, he's such a big threat still.
Okay.
They were also talking about them flying around Dragon Ball Z style in, like, their fucking Iron Man armor for both of them.
Oh.
And fighting in the sky and shit.
Oh.
Like, that would have been so cool.
Yes.
Oh, that would have been so neat. I would have loved it.
Yeah, this was a really good series, and I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did.
I told you, man. It's a really good series. And it makes it such a tragedy that it never got a final season. And that fucking Thundercats roar follows it up as the next line of this shit.
The good thing is they had a 8 or 9 year gap.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not. It just makes me sad that that's what decides to take its place. And even at that point, it's not even a good show. I don't even know if I'd want it to be a good show. Like, it looks horrible. And even if it would be funny and people would like it, I don't know if I'd be happy about it.
Is Mumra at least competent, or is he like, ooh, I'm gonna kill you, Thundercats, ooh, do?
If the trailers are anything to go by, it's probably that. It's probably the latter. If I remember right from some of the trailers, there's shit like, look at me swing my pointy stick thing. And that's Lion-O talking.
Why?
It physically hurts.
Oh. Please don't tell me that Aaron Horvath, no relation to me,
Uh-huh.
is he anything to do with that?
I have no idea. I saw the trailer and that's as far as I gave a shit enough to look.
Because I know there was within the past year, a semi thing happening in New York, negative with like some guy named Horvath, and I'm like, no, why is the Horvath name becoming so bad? Granted, I don't know any of these people, but they share my same last name, so I do feel a bit of pain.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, you have a bit of a less than common name around these areas.
In general, there's really not that many with my last name. Like, there's clusters of us, but we're kind of like spread across different states. Like, I think there's a cluster out in like Michigan or somewhere around there.
Yeah, but like I think around eastern Pennsylvania, maybe in like New York, New Jersey, there's a lot more Horvaths, but you're lucky to have an uncommon last name that you can't feel physical pain.
I mean, I can totally feel physical pain sometimes, don't get me wrong.
After saying that, that kind of did sound a little dumb.
I'm
like,
not invulnerable, man. I mean, you poke me with a thumbtack, I'm gonna bleed just like you.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just hearing, and I'm sure there's stuff I've either forgotten or details I've missed in this. Go watch that Go listen to that podcast if you give a shit about ThunderCats 2011 at all.
I'm
It's
going to be linking it in this podcast as well, so
it is very interesting to see where they were going to take it. And I would have been more than happy if they would have gotten the green light to do this, if they would have extended it for a third season and just separated that time skip to be between seasons for each one.
just like Gravity Falls was going to do.
That I would have done. I could totally see what was going to happen as far as like, all right, season 1's done, time skip, cool. Season 2's done, there's the next time skip. That would have been perfect to do it. And hey, maybe that would have been the plan. Like I said, they were pretty well into developing at least the first 13 episodes on where they were going to go. And they had like some general plans for after the second time skip. I'm sure they might have been able to find some other filler episodes to throw in for another 26 episodes if necessary, or if they felt they could pace it better.
That was one good thing about this. There really didn't seem to be filler episodes.
It didn't feel like it, right? Like technically you could call the Pet Lars and the Carp ones, you could call those filler episodes because you could technically not see that episode and it wouldn't change the story too much. But even then, elements of those episodes come back, like on the Bird City. Like the characters come back to help out.
Yeah, and like took its magic bag.
Yep, took its magic bag. They meet up with Took It again because, like, the end of his episode is like, oh, hey, look, I've got a lockpick / pin to pick the lock with. I wonder what's gonna happen.
So Took It may have shown up again.
Oh, he does. He's supposed to. There's an episode that was centered on Wily Cat where he meets up with Took It again. I do remember that is definitely something that is mentioned. Again, I'm sure there's more I'm missing. If you care, watch that podcast / interview. It's like 3 hours, but it is well worth it. There's a lot of interesting info on where it was going.
Actually,
and it makes me even more sad that it doesn't exist.
Actually, I think the reason why it's 3 hours is because that's the first paywall for SoundCloud.
It's not. They end it pretty well.
No,
like there's a technical difference.
3 hour, like 3 hours is a paywall for SoundCloud, and then I think 6 hours is another paywall. So
I mean, the only thing they said they edited out of there was like problems with mics and technical issues that popped up during it. So whether or not it was meant to be that long or not, who knows? Or just happened to be that long. Either way, there's a lot of interesting stuff to be had. I'd also say check out Dan Norton's DeviantArt. It's literally called Dan Norton Art, one word, on DeviantArt. He's got a lot of the stuff in there for this show. A lot of like you'll have to go down a bit because he did post them back in like 2018 or so, but a lot of the concept art's in there, including like the different characters, some of the backgrounds, the plans for some of the like bases and stuff, the cities, and even like some of the robots and machinery that's in here too.
Yeah, maybe I'll host some
Hey, look, Took It.
Older Brandon's Discuss Anime on SoundCloud to drag in more people, but why am I saying this here when you already are watching this on YouTube that you can easily click to other videos, which I think you should do. We currently have over 50 episodes of Brandon's Discuss Anime available for your listening pleasure.
Oh, all right. So hold on. There's a bit I forgot to mention that I think is super interesting and important.
Okay,
all right.
Way to cut myself promoting.
I'm sorry.
Yay.
I just was reminded of it. So I teased it a bit when we were talking about it in the main podcast, but what about Snarf?
What about Snarf?
Did anything seem interesting with Snarf while you were watching?
The fact that he wasn't annoying really stood out.
All right. Anything physically stand out involving Snarf?
The fact that he is more cat-like?
All right. So here's the most interesting bit about this, all right? Snarf was meant to be indestructible.
Wait, what?
Like, do you remember all the punishment Snarf ends up getting throughout this series? Like, shit that probably should have killed him.
Somewhat.
They're going to express that even more in, like, the first half of season 2. And I think there was meant to be, like, a flashback at some point during season 3. Like, not season 3, but the second half of season 2. Snarf is indestructible. There was going to be a flashback showing that Snarf was literally on the spaceship before it crashed onto Third Earth. When when Leo released all of the prisoners, that included Snarf.
So
Snarf was in his
Snarf
own...
is like hundreds of years old.
Yes. Snarf was in his own little pen, and the reason that the ship crashes is because Snarf fucks it up. I forget exactly what he said, but Snarf did something to cause the crash to happen. So the entire reason Snarf was meant to be there is because Mumra found him, realized he had this like quality of being damn near indestructible, and said, maybe someday I can use this for something.
So
I don't know
Snarf's
how or what.
species indestructible?
That's what it seems like, but we've never seen another one. The idea was then the reason the Thundercats exist as they do is because they have Snarf's DNA in them. When Mumra was experimenting and creating the Thundercats, Snarf's DNA was part of that experimentation.
Oh, wow.
So Snarf is technically like the many greats grandfather, twice removed of the Thundercats, essentially.
And nobody knows it.
Nobody knows it.
Snarf as an almighty thing just blows my mind.
They were going to really put him through his paces, from what I understand, in season 2, before that reveal. Like, it was going to be nuts.
That just reminds me, and I've only gotten through season 3 before I drifted off, but Zwei the Corgi from Ruby, he got shot out of a cannon. No, it was more like a rocket launcher. It's like smash into a mech cannonball style, land just like wags his tail like, yay, I did something good.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that is a reference to Cowboy Bebop.
Mm-hmm. I do like the reference to fucking I.
Yeah, I really need to watch Ruby because that was good.
I got turned off of it in the first season. Too much school shit.
Yeah, but I heard it gets
Tween drama.
darker in...
I've heard the same thing. I'm just not... Season 1 turned me off of it. I don't know. I mean, I should give it another shot, but I don't know when.
Yeah, but I've heard like there's so many more fairy tale stuff like in it.
Mm-hmm.
Although I did hear they had a crossover with BlazBlue.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I forgot to mention this in the main podcast, but Bleach is coming back for the final season.
What?
Yeah, the series is getting resurrected for its final season. Somehow.
Wow.
I'm super curious how that's going to play out, especially because of how shittily paced the last arc is.
Taite will add some stuff to make it better?
I'm hoping so, or like the anime crew will help pad it out, because that pacing is god awful. Like it literally feels like it takes damn near a nosedive. Just like, all right, we got to end all of these fights because the anime's ending in like 3 weeks, or the show's the manga's ending in like 3 weeks. We need to cut all these fights out and end them now. They need to win.
Oh.
To be fair, there are some interesting twists in there, like Kenpachi. He finally unlocks his Bankai. That's real fucking sweet.
I think I mentioned this before, but who were the hollows that weren't hollows? I think
No, they were not Bounce. They were Vizards.
Okay, so
The Bounce were an entire like filler arc.
I think I stopped around the Bound arc.
Mm-hmm.
So I know there's so much more for me to watch.
Oh, there's a lot more. You could just read the manga up until that point, or you skip the filler arcs. Even if I do think the filler arcs are probably some of the best ones.
I think it was because Bleach used to be on around midnight, and then moved to like 2 a.m. and I'm like, I can't watch this. I don't have the time to stay up.
Yeah, yeah. I ended up reading the manga. I think I cut out around the time that we were starting to get to like Aizen in Hueco Mundo, I think. I think that's when I cut out watching the anime and I started like just only reading the manga. But yeah, like that coming back is super interesting and I can't wait to see if they try and fill out the missing pieces inside of that final season. Or the final arc, I should say. Because there's no way that was the way it was meant to end. It does not feel like it.
Yeah.
Like not like in that way, but it is. I will always say this: Bleach had the best filler I've ever seen in an anime. It felt way better than the actual like main story sometimes. And Ichigo is the biggest mudblood in anime I've ever seen. He's literally everything.
You did mention that to me a few weeks ago.
Literally, he's everything. To any species in that fucking show, he is that. He has it.
So I guess it's time to.
As we tangented into fucking other shit.
I guess
Yeah.
it's time to
Oh,
come up
it's-
for
we're done.
air.
Yeah, probably.
I think that's how I end these. We have
It's been a while.
like 10 months.
It's been a while.
Yeah. And who knows if we'll be doing another one soon, later.
It all depends.
Yeah. Because I think out of the like 57-ish episodes we did, this is only like the 7th, maybe? I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, so until then, later.
Bye.